Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Je suis ravie en tout cas de vous accueillir pour cette journée qui, je l'espère, sera le début d'une série de séances de travail parce qu'on est juste au début de cette nouvelle actualité que constitue l'irruption de ChatGPT non seulement dans l'éducation, mais dans le monde en général. Et je pense qu'il y a beaucoup de choses à faire. On discutait à l'instant avec Elie Alouche qui interviendra tout à l'heure de cette actualité brûlante qui est venue à la toute fin d'un projet auquel il a participé. Donc, pendant 3 ans, ils ont travaillé sur l'IA dans l'éducation, sauf que ChatGPT, c'était en novembre. Donc, voilà, il faut continuer. Voilà, on est vraiment plein dans l'actualité. La première partie, j'ai demandé à Antonio et à Elie d'intervenir, donc Antonio Casilli et Elie Alouche, d'intervenir sur 2 questions assez différentes. Je sais, Antonio, que tu as utilisé ChatGPT avec tes élèves et que c'est un petit peu ce que Fabrice a fait aussi en classe pour pouvoir expérimenter avec les élèves. Donc, on pourra peut-être parler de tout ça. Et je trouve que le titre, pour ne pas se tromper de combat, a été très, très bienvenu. Ensuite, Elie Alouche interviendra dans le prolongement d'un billet de blog que j'avais lu il y a quelque temps sur un dialogue avec ChatGPT. Ça, il y en a plein partout. Chacun s'est amusé à faire des dialogues, y compris en lui faisant faire des choses qu'il n'est pas censé faire ou bien dire des choses qu'il n'est pas censé dire. Et après la pause, on aura un atelier table ronde qui sera plus interactif, avec Cécile Catelin, justement, qui ne devrait pas tarder. Je sais qu'elle avait un problème elle avait un train qui devait arriver vers 9h15, donc elle doit pas être très loin. Elle m'aurait informé si elle avait eu un problème. Fabrice, nos élèves, et puis qui sera modéré par Émilie Echarou de la revue Ouzbek Erika, après la pause.
Welcome to this presentation. I will now and translate it in French. This is a labor and pedagogical translation of ChatGPT. I don't know if that's the English for it. And the idea is to identify and to spot the actual issues, problems, and possible domains of confrontation, struggle, recognition for us as teachers, but of course for everybody in our society. First of all, I have to probably explain from where I am talking. Within the Institut Polytechnique de Paris, I co-facilitate a research program, which is also a research team called the Digital Platform Labor, DPLAB for short. And this is something that is done with the help of my friends and colleagues from other disciplines like economics or linguistics or even computer science. And the idea is to analyze and to explore the labor-related issues of AI. Now, the main activity that we carry on and carry out, we've been carrying it out for several years now, is mainly traveling the world despite a global pandemic and major geopolitical disruptions, and interview people all over the world. Well, all over the world is mainly in Europe, Latin America, and Africa. These are our 3 main geographical areas. We have conducted some few thousand surveys in terms of interviews and questionnaires and interviews online, offline, participant observations, and other type of ethnographic qualitative methods. I won't go into the detail, but you will see that basically this data that we have collected over the years will eventually inform what I will talk about, because the main topic of today's presentation is mainly how generative AI in general impact our activities. And first of all, we have to assess and tackle this topic by admitting and recognizing that there is an ongoing rhetorical wave, let's say, about AI and how it impacts employment in general, human activities and human labor. So you are probably aware of the fact that there is a vast news cycle analyzing the exposure of several professions and several jobs to generative AI. Of course, the job that is our job, meaning teaching, is affected. But my main stance and my main point today is that basically this is not the right, I mean, the idea of the replacement of human workers by generative AI or any kind of automation is probably not the right way of analyzing this problem. The problem is that there is still a lot of human labor that is necessary, but this human labor is out of sight, is situated, is located in places either geographically or let's say legally that are outside of our reach and our view. And you will soon see that for a labor-saving technology, this generative AI sure needs a lot of workforce and human workforce at them, leaving labor, to use one all-time category. Yes, of course, ChatGPT is only the last and probably most significant product, because it is a product. It is a commercial product that has been produced and put on the market by OpenAI. And it is based on a specific type of model that is called GPT-3 and now 4, because it's the 4th iteration of it. But if you have been following the news, you have probably noticed there has been a lot of discussion about one specific aspect of AI, meaning the fact that OpenAI have been recruiting and put into work several hundred people in Kenya to, let's say, moderate ChatGPT. We will soon see that it is more than simple moderation. This is actually the tenet, the central core to ChatGPT and to GPT-3 and 4, of course, because this is the human labor that is necessary to produce the data that are used to train this AI solution. First of all, let's have a look at the very acronym, GPT. What does it mean? I suspect that all of you, or most of you definitely, are familiar with this, but let's summarize and make sure that everybody is on the same page, the same level. T of ChatGPT stands for transformer, which is a specific type of mathematical model that is used to make this AI function. More than generating text or images, this kind of transformer basically completes existing streams of text. The example is, if I have a sentence that is, I don't know, today is a beautiful, probably there is a good chance that the next word will be day or morning, probably. But anyway, this is actually how it works. We provide a prompt, today is a beautiful, and the transformer completes. Now, the other two letters of the acronym GPT are just about as important. The first one is G, generative. We probably have nothing to add to it. It's pretty self-spoken. It is an AI that generates content. And then, of course, there is the most dubious and probably most mysterious letter, pre, which stands for pre-trained. Pre-trained means that these AI needs a lot of training, a lot of preparation, using test datasets and training datasets, meaning huge amounts of data that are not simply raw data. Well, by the way, raw data per se do not exist. We always need to enrich the data, filter the data, annotate the data, document the data. And who does this? Well, you will be surprised to know that, of course, we do have some information about people in Kenya, and this is something that the Time magazine expose revealed a few months ago. It was in January. But OpenAI has been, well, we wouldn't say adamant, because it's pretty opaque as a process, but it has provided some information as to who trains or pre-trains ChatGPT. Companies like, or platforms like Samasource recruit workers in Kenya, in South Africa, but also other companies like Upwork have been recruiting trainers, data trainers in the UK, in Turkey, and in India, where there are big technopoles around the city of Bangalore and Hyderabad. And of course, there are also Canada and the US, where other platforms have been recruiting companies as well, data annotators, data workers, but also the Philippines and in general, Southeast Asia. The geography of it is rather important, and we will come back to it by the end of this presentation. Now, of course, as you probably have noticed, the title of the slide is Who Pre-trained ChatGPT? And you see it coming. I'm now going to ask the question, who post-trains at ChatGPT? Because the training is never over. The training is never over because there's a lot of human living labor that is involved in the, well, fine-tuning, or in some cases, even the actual functioning of ChatGPT or other products that are connected to it. You probably have heard about the fact that Bing, the cursed search engine by Microsoft, have been trying to integrate GPT technologies in it, and it has produced this new iteration of the Bing search engine called Sydney. Sydney officially has been launched at the beginning of 2023, but it turns out that back in November 2022, it was already tested in India, again, one of the countries where free trainers were recruited by people who were not aware of the fact that they were actually providing free testing work, labor, for Microsoft in this case, but also for OpenAI, because it was a joint project. And we now have a lot of information, a lot of witnesses that have been coming out over the last few months, declaring that they have been post-training and testing Sydney, which means basically, well, doing exactly what we do, you and I, as users of a product like ChatGPT, because whenever we use ChatGPT, you probably have noticed that there are these thumbs up, thumb down, close to the actual reply or response generated by ChatGPT. And this is basically us post-training, assessing the quality of the result of ChatGPT. And it is also clear, despite the fact that ChatGPT does not have let's say, terms of service per se, meaning an entire long page with all the specification of the privacy, data ownership, and what do they do with our data. It is clearly stated in the bottom of the page that the goal of ChatGPT is to use the labor that is freely provided by us to improve and use it as a feedback to improve basically the result of ChatGPT. So a lot of work goes into the pre-training and also the post-training. Nevertheless, if we listen to the rhetoric of ChatGPT and the producers of ChatGPT, I mean OpenAI, we will probably be surprised by the fact that there is no mention at all of this type of labor, and that they only emphasize the hypertrophic models, meaning the AI models that they use. Of course, there has been an improvement which has been incremental in the performance of this products over the years, AI products in general. From 2018 to 2023, we have seen a remarkable progress. Nevertheless, this progress cannot be only attributed to the computing power of the hardware that they use, or also the size, the sheer size of the models, despite the fact that, of course, whenever OpenAI or Microsoft or Google or Facebook and so on communicate about their AI, the only thing they insist on is the size, the number of parameters. For instance, ChatGPT, is based on GPT-3, which was produced in 2020, and at the time it sported 174 million parameters. Now they have overcome this in 2023 when GPT-4 was produced, and allegedly it has 100 trillion parameters, so 100,000 billion parameters, which is a lot. But again, it is probably not the right figure to be focusing on, because if we look at the history of automation in general and AI in particular, each big breakthrough in AI has been, or at least in AI as intended as machine learning, which is a specific type of AI, a specific way of doing AI, an AI which is very data intensive. Each breakthrough in machine learning over the last 30 years has been preceded by the availability and the production of huge amounts of data. For instance, even the 1997 victory of IBM Deep Blue, which is a very rudimentary chess-playing AI that was able to beat the world champion Garry Kasparov in 1997, was preceded a few years before by the publication of the extended Booker chess game dataset, which at the time seemed humongous, like 20 million matches, chess matches. Nowadays, it's something rather smallish. Or for instance, the other breakthrough was when IBM Watson, another AI, was able to beat human contestants in the Jeopardy TV quiz TV show. It was preceded, well, it actually used 8.6 million tables of data produced by Wikipedia users. And I will not go on with all the other examples because we do not have time, but importantly, GPT-3 was actually trained using several petabytes of data collected starting, well, actually, even before the actual creation of OpenAI, by a company or a structure called Common Crawl, which is a huge database that basically scrapes internet data. And this internet data, in some cases, are quality data, in some other cases are basically all the trolling that goes on Reddit or any other forum. And this, of course, constitutes a problem. This is why we need to annotate, filter, moderate, review this data, and this is something that is done by human beings. So if we have to be frank and sharp and blunt, we probably should not focus on the kind of rhetorical questions that AI producers like to ask, like, what about an AGI, an artificial general intelligence, an intelligence that is capable of overcoming human performance, or sentient robots, or any other kind of sci-fi scenarios? While we have very concrete and very present and urgent questions to answer. And these questions concern, for instance, the use of the data of us, the users, and the privacy. Is our privacy respected? You probably have noticed that over the last couple of weeks, there has been, well, I wouldn't say a big kerfuffle about ChatGPT's showing to users the chat history of other users, but it has been a major bug. Usually, this is the bug that gets the DPA, the data protection authorities, like the CNIL in France, they make them stand and be attentive to what goes on with the data. There is also a problem, or several problems, with the intellectual property and the copyright of the production of the contents that is produced with the help of AI. Despite the fact that they are called generative AI, they do not generate because they need a human prompt. So they are produced by people who are now progressively becoming prompt engineers. We are all developing over the last years competencies and skills as prompt engineers. There are problems in terms of regulation and governance of AI. There are problems in terms of bias of AI. And the problem I want to focus on today, and then I will finish, is mainly that of the exploitation of data workers in today's context. Well, basically, exploitation of data workers is a rather vague topic because okay, I've mentioned people in Kenya or the Philippines producing data and pre-training AI, but what does it mean exactly, and why we can talk about an exploitation or even an extractive system? And a global system at that. First of all, we do have to focus on the fact that OpenAI's products like ChatGPT are not the only products that are based on human labor. Basically, the entirety of today's commercially available AI solutions are based on human labor. Think about, I don't know, vocal assistants like Siri or Cortana, or the autopilot systems for self-driving, let's put it into brackets, cars like Teslas. These are based on a huge amount of data, and this data is produced by human beings. But even in our everyday usages of, well, the most common tools, like, for instance, search engines, we are constantly training and retraining these algorithms. The example of Google search engine is pretty adamant. As you know, Google has been suggesting or auto-completing queries by its users over the last 20 years, basically. And the clear example of what happened is, for instance, the fact that the search engine is capable of learning from what the users search for. The example is that back in 2019, somebody writing Corona, typing Corona in Google search would have as a Google suggestion, Corona Cerveza, which is a beer. But a few months afterwards, after the pandemic kicked off, the autocomplete went in another direction. And this is why, this is because it learned from billion of users who started looking for information about coronavirus, and this became the most popular search, basically. Another example, and I think that in the room we are all old enough to remember this iteration of reCAPTCHAs. reCAPTCHAs are systems that are supposed to tell apart humans from robots. You have to demonstrate that you are not a robot. And how did you demonstrate it until a few years ago? You had to transcribe words. You had to transcribe this like word to words, like morning upon, because a robot, or basically an AI, is not able to do it. You would be surprised, or probably not, because you are aware of it, to know that reCAPTCHAs were used to train the text recognition algorithms of Google Books, which is, of course, a Google product. And this is something that eventually created a lot of legal problems for Google, and Google was forced to move away from this version of reCAPTCHA that was used to train Google Books recognition software to this new version of reCAPTCHA that you are all even more familiar, I think, because whenever we want to retrieve a password or, access, I don't know, a website, it requires us to select squares. And this is something that is necessary to actually teach or train another type of AI that is still produced by Google or Alphabet. And it's Waymo's self-driving car. Waymo is the subsidiary of Alphabet that produces self-driving cars. So whenever we are demonstrating we are not robot, we are actually performing the work that is necessary to produce a robot, the robot in question being the self-driving car. Now, whenever we say that we are working, of course, I usually see people, putting brackets into it, or, advancing the I'm sorry, the remark that this is not real work. The real work is the work that is done by professionals that are data scientists, experts in algorithms, and computer scientists. But I want to submit to you that this is not even numerically the biggest constituency of humans producing AI, because engineers, data scientists, because of the fact that they are extremely specialized, they are not the huge majority of people who produce AI. The huge majority of people who produce AI are what can be described as click workers, or travailleurs du clic, or digital laborers, or digital workers. And this image is just suggestive. They don't look like this. You will soon see that there is they are actual people, they exist, but this is only one way of suggesting that they are more like, hired hands or construction workers, but they construct AI. So where do we find these people? Well, there are some specialized companies, platforms. Scale AI is one that we already mentioned. You can, if you are a company, you can go on Scale AI and say, I want to recruit 100,000 people to do this task. And usually tasks are paid a few cents. In some cases, if they are, blocks of tasks, they can be paid a few dollars. Some companies like Micro Workers are famous for very, very, let's say, poor payments, like 10 cents, 12 cents for each task. And how does it work exactly? Probably the best way to explain it is to present you Amazon Mechanical Turk. I suspect that some of you are familiar with this Amazon platform. This is actually something that was created by Amazon more than 20 years ago. And it is sometimes called a microwork platform or a crowd work platform. It's basically a place where you are supposed to produce fake AI. The idea, the very name Amazon Mechanical Turk comes from the metaphor of the Turk chess player invented by Baron von Kempelen in the 18th century. And this was supposed to be the first artificial intelligence capable of playing chess. But as you probably know, because this is a famous hoax, it was not a true artificial intelligence. Inside the robot or inside the cogs, a person was hiding. And we don't know who this person was, but for sure, all the hypotheses that have been advanced never pointed towards grandmaster of chess. Sometimes was, I don't know, a war veteran or a small child or some kind of person with disability, but never a grandmaster of chess. And this is the basic idea of Amazon Mechanical Turk. If you are a company and you want to produce an AI solution, you go on Amazon Mechanical Turk and you can access a global on-demand 24/7 workforce. This is basically Amazon Mechanical Turk adds and claim. So you can access this global on-demand workforce that will produce for you, well, a number of services. For instance, it will help you digitize, I don't know, text or sound or annotate videos. Let me give you, and they are paid very poorly, like 3 cents, 2 cents per task. This is sometimes why they are called micro workers, or sometimes in French, the micro tâcheron, the tâcheron du clic. So it's something that is, of course, derogatory, but it also points towards the fact that they perform small tasks. Now, let me give you this example of somebody whom we interviewed back in 2018. And this person was hired in France to transcribe and to check if the vocal assistant of a famous company was capable of actually recognizing human voice. This person received short snippets of sound in an audio file. So she would download the video file, she would listen to it and check if the transcription provided by the vocal assistant was correct, or in case it was not, provide another transcription. This example that is taken from her actual work is a small snippet of sound of somebody that seemingly was saying the words, was uttering the word Ben Laden, le mot alors in French. Probably somebody talking about Bin Laden, the famous dead terrorist. We don't know. This is why we need human beings to actually listen to the audio snippet and see and recognize with a trained ear, and of course being a mother tongue, that the person was actually pronouncing the phrase Ben, donne-le-moi alors, which is something probably much more anodyne than mentioning Ben Laden. This person was paid very little to do this, and she was submitted to a very harsh working rhythms. But most importantly, this kind of micro work that this person was performing also points towards a specific geography and a global geography of the global value chains that are put in place by this AI. This AI was produced by a US company. So the principal employer was a US company. this company would not hire directly the micro workers. It would be like a long subcontracting chain. In fact, this US company would turn towards a Chinese company, that would turn towards a Japanese company, that would turn towards a Spanish company, that would hire people in France to micro work and then send the annotated data to the US. That's a nice word tour just to produce a few data that are necessary to make a vocal assistant like Alexa or Google Home work. And the important part is that whenever we look at how companies communicate about their workforce, it is striking the difference between what they declare and the actual composition, the actual constituency of the workforce. For instance, Amazon Mechanical Turk or Appen, which is an even bigger Australian company specialized in micro-working, whenever they describe who works for them, you know, these data workers, these micro-taskers, they usually describe them as very white, very blonde types. And when we look at the actual composition, demographics of these persons, you will soon see that they are a bit less blonde. For instance, last year I was with my students, Clément Leludec and Maxime Cornet in Madagascar, and this is, well, a sample of the hundreds of persons that were interviewed in our fieldwork. These were 120 persons working for a small platform/company based in a small house in the outskirts of Tananarivo, which is the capital of Madagascar. As you can see, they are all women and men from Tananarivo, pretty young, usually less than 30 and even less than 28 actually, university educated, and they work day and night in every room, including the garage and including the cellar of this house, you know, 20, 25 persons per room, day and night, on these laptops, computers, to train artificial intelligence, sometimes even to impersonate artificial intelligence. It's a long story. But the point is that when we are looking for people who accept to work for such a small amount of money, it is usually in countries that are low income, that companies like Amazon Mechanical Turk and others find this kind of workforce. This explains why ChatGPT and OpenAI have been using people from the Philippines, from Africa, and from Turkey, for instance, and other places to train ChatGPT and others. Now, let me just terminate this part, and then we go to the final part, which is actually about teaching, by providing you, based on the data that we have been collecting over the last 4 years, a global geography of AI production. First of all, this is also one way of insisting on the fact that there are big inequalities within the countries that produce and market AI. These are mainly global north countries and two very prominent emerging countries like India and China, but the rest are the US, Japan, Europe, you know, the usual suspects. But if we look at where the data and the micro work to produce this data is actually provided, you will see that there is a first flow of data that goes from Southeast Asia to North America. This is something that is, again, documented with ChatGPT, but has been true for a number of years already. There is also a very Chinese training population, AI training population. China not only has a big internal market of data annotators, but also can rely on Chinese-speaking communities in Southeast Asia. If we look at the French-speaking countries, the situation gets more complicated. Clearly, there are some neo-colonial dependency patterns that show and that connect countries like Madagascar, Senegal, Algeria, Tunisia, and France. But recently, a new player has come into the game, and the new player is Russia. I won't go into that, but it's a complicated situation. Africa is not only producing data for Europe. Some countries like Egypt, where I was doing my fieldwork back in 2020, are attested to produce data for China. For instance, face recognition, AI in China are largely trained by Egyptian data workers or micro workers. And then we'll finish with the Latin American situation. There is a flow that goes from Latin America, especially Argentina, Colombia, to the US. Basically, they produce data for US companies, but there is also another flow, rather important, that goes from Venezuela to Europe and again, Russia. So as you see, a rather complicated global geography that clearly points towards some extractive and neocolonial dynamics. And this is necessary to produce and pre-train AI. Let me finish by just addressing the very topic of today's workshop, and the fact that the question that is still open is ChatGPT threatening the way we teach today? Is it the end of teaching as we know it? Well, the fact is that in our job, we are subject to cyclical moral panics. As you probably remember, over the last 20 years, we have been witnessing the big Google scare, and then the Wikipedia scare, and then the Facebook scare. And every time teachers and students have welcomed these new affordances, these new tools as game changers, for better or worse. Of course, teachers were scared that people would, that the students would, only use Google and not learn things, or only copy and paste from Wikipedia. We know now that we can use serviceably these tools to actually propel or change the way we teach. And it is also true that both students and teachers live in the same technical context, where we are afforded a certain number of tools. And so it is our task to learn how to make sense of these tools. And if the tools today are AI, generative AI, it is our task and our responsibility to learn to use them, also to teach students what are their limitations and the issues connected to it. And the issues, again, are a number of issues: privacy issues, exploitation issues, bias issues, the economic concentration of data issues. I think that I've been pounding on that nail a lot. And just to finish, let me just show you my small-scale experimentation that I've been doing with my students at the Institut Polytechnique de Paris. And of course, these are students that went through a prépa, so they are rather more mature than I don't know, high school students or middle school students, or even first year students. But the examples that I've been trying to put in place are challenges connected to ChatGPT, meaning tutorials or TD. For instance, in some cases, the idea was to help them develop their prompt writing skills, choosing a specific topic. They had to come up with a unique prompt that would create the most original answers. Other experimentations can be conducted with small teams of persons, for instance, help them develop converging prompts, meaning different prompts that would eventually converge to the same topic. I won't go into other examples, but these are some of these experimentations are actually ways of helping students use it. In another case, I've been using ChatGPT for substantive learning, meaning for learning specific topics. And the idea is, for instance, that the ChatGPT could be used to, I don't know, study or revise some topics that we have been addressing in class. In class, for instance, the previous lessons I taught them an entire lecture about digital socialization, and then the ChatGPT challenge next session was to actually provide a series of prompts to ChatGPT individually, and this series of prompts would have to approximate in the best possible manner the content of the previous lecture. Of course, if they were not aware of what went on in that lecture, they would not be able to ask the right question to ChatGPT. There are other constraints in terms of limiting the number of prompts. And then there was another moment where they would use ChatGPT to elicit references, bibliographical references, and of course, checking and challenging the bibliographical references provided by ChatGPT, because as you know, and as many have insisted upon, ChatGPT is very good at producing what expert Gary Marcus calls authoritative bullshit, meaning is capable of producing references or sentences that sound authoritative, but they are just improvisation on a topic. And so it is important for students to actually challenge the results. And this means that they have to at least make an effort to go into, I don't know, a bibliographical database and check for the actual reference, the actual author, the actual date of publication and place of publication. And this is basically it from my part. And I think we still have time for questions, despite the fact that I took my time to make this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Je pense qu'il doit y avoir plein de questions. Moi, j'en aurais une ou deux tout à l'heure, mais je vais peut-être laisser d'abord la parole à la salle. Et merci d'avoir ouvert sur un sujet beaucoup plus général avant de ramener à l'éducation. On aurait aimé, je pense, en savoir un peu plus sur la manière dont ça s'est passé avec les étudiants, mais tu pourras peut-être nous en dire plus. Est-ce qu'il y a des questions? Je sais que la première question est toujours difficile. Sinon, moi, j'aimerais commencer sur la panique morale que tu as évoquée, qui se produit tous les 10 ans. La manière dont André Tricot commence souvent ses présentations, c'est en parlant de l'apparition du cinéma, où on a eu peur que finalement les films remplacent complètement les livres, et on s'est aperçu que finalement, 20 ans, 30 ans, 50 ans après, ça, c'était pas forcément le cas. Mais en même temps, cette panique morale, elle n'est pas complètement infondée. On a vu que Wikipédia, on a eu des copier-coller entiers dans des devoirs qui avaient été rendus par des étudiants. Et moi, je me pose la question par rapport à nos capacités cognitives, parce que j'ai souvent entendu dire « Oh ben maintenant, c'est plus la peine d'apprendre ni des poésies, ni les tables de multiplication, ni rien du tout, parce que tout est sur Internet ». Et la limitation de notre cerveau que n'a pas ChatGPT, c'est que le nombre de connaissances qu'on peut intégrer simultanément pour les traiter est limité du fait de notre mémoire à court terme. Hein, c'est cognitif, on peut pas déployer ça sans limite. Par contre, une chose qu'on a et que ChatGPT n'a pas, c'est qu'on peut hiérarchiser les informations, hiérarchiser les sources. Et tu donnais cet exemple de référence bibliographique qui pouvait être parfois complètement fantaisiste. Effectivement, ChatGPT va placer sur le même plan un article scientifique, une fiction et peut-être des tweets ou d'autres choses qu'il aura trouvées sur des sources. Donc, il ne hiérarchise pas les informations. Et donc, à partir de là, je ne sais pas trop comment formuler ma question, mais c'est comment sans céder à la panique morale, comment on évalue quand même les vraies limites par rapport à notre cerveau humain aussi pour en faire un usage qui soit pertinent. Je ne sais pas si c'est clair la question.
Si, tout à fait, tout à fait. Alors, je te remercie d'abord pour la question parce que ça me permet de citer l'un de mes livres fétiches du siècle passé, qui était le livre de 1966, L'art de la mémoire de Francis Yates. Donc, c'est un livre qui est écrit par une historienne majeure du XXe siècle et qui restituait l'histoire des dispositifs de mémoire dans, à partir de l'Antiquité jusqu'à la Renaissance. Et l'idée, quels sont ces dispositifs de mémoire? Lorsque un orateur, par exemple, devait apprendre par cœur un certain nombre de discours, paragraphes, messages et ainsi de suite, cette personne, surtout dans des contextes dans lesquels l'écriture ou les techniques scripturales étaient moins répandues, avait recours souvent à des dispositifs qui parfois étaient des dispositifs purement mentaux, donc par exemple se souvenir en utilisant des mnémotechniques, et ensuite sont devenus des dispositifs qui ont progressivement matérialisé cette information. Donc, on est venu aux livres, on est venu aux tables mathématiques, par exemple, ou aux calculettes, et ensuite les smartphones, et ainsi de suite. Alors, quel est le problème? Le problème, ou plutôt l'enjeu, est que ces dispositifs sont des outils qui aident notre mémoire et qui aident notre mémoire à stocker un certain nombre d'informations ou à processer, c'est-à-dire à gérer un certain nombre d'informations qui sont pour autant toujours disponibles. Alors, moi, je ne vois pas quel est le problème à se servir je ne sais pas, aujourd'hui, ChatGPT, alors que les Sumériens, il y a plusieurs milliers d'années, se servaient des tables en argile pour faire la même chose. Je suis certain qu'à l'époque des Sumériens aussi, il y avait des personnes qui s'insurgeaient contre ces jeunes qui utilisent l'écriture cunéiforme et qui, pour cela, oublient le savoir ancien. Mais je considère tout simplement que c'est des outils à notre disposition. Le problème est que ces outils-là, et vous avez compris que quand même, je suis pas du tout un enthousiaste. Je suis pas du tout je suis un possibiliste, mais je suis un possibiliste critique. Je pense que ces problèmes-là posent tout un tas pardon, que ces dispositifs-là posent des problèmes qui sont beaucoup plus urgents en termes de régulation, en termes de propriété, et qu'il faudrait se concentrer sur ces problèmes-là pour appréhender ce que, par exemple, ces outils font à notre mémoire. Par exemple, je suis beaucoup plus intéressé à la question des biais de ces outils, des biais difficiles à reconnaître tant que nous ne reconnaissons pas ou nous ne dévoilons pas les modalités de production. Si nous ne savons pas quels sont les paramètres utilisés, quelles sont les données utilisées, qui a configuré les paramètres, qui a entraîné les données, là on a un problème sur ce que l'outil va nous apprendre. Et oui, il peut faire quelque chose à notre mémoire, mais je l'envisage surtout en termes de censure de notre mémoire, de censure au sens de laisser des pans entiers du savoir en dehors de notre portée. Le cas classique, je ne sais pas si vous avez, comme moi, utilisé ChatGPT. ChatGPT a un discours que je n'hésite de définir comme très social-démocrate, au sens de très centriste, équilibré, et ce qui évidemment ne plaît pas à tout le monde, n'est pas pour plaire à tout le monde. Et donc, dans ces contextes-là, ChatGPT propose toujours, si on on le pousse à réfléchir, par exemple, ou à prendre des positions sur un sujet ou sur un autre, il va toujours terminer son petit laïus par oui, mais quand même, il faut considérer qu'il y a aussi l'autre élément à prendre en compte, sans parler de tout un tas de prompts qui ne sont pas pris en compte, autant par ChatGPT que par d'autres outils, parce que considérés comme non adaptés, non appropriés, illégaux par rapport au contexte légal de l'utilisation. Et là, effectivement, c'est une question de questionnement, pas vraiment de la mémoire, mais vraiment du savoir à notre disposition, soit en termes de production, soit en termes de génération de ce savoir, qu'en termes d'utilisation des données pour le produire.
Merci beaucoup. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions?
Chose, donc créer un version, chinois, le ChatGPT, etc. Mais comme on a, si vous savez, l'État chinois, on contrôle tout, on a tout la censure, etc. Même sur Internet. Donc je pense, est-ce que vous savez que si, même si avec ChatGPT, on peut quand même faire censure, etc.
Je ne crois pas avoir compris, j'entends mal malheureusement. Est-ce que Pascal, tu peux répéter s'il te plaît?
Donc, on a une auditrice qui vient de Chine et qui dit que la Chine essaye de développer un outil équivalent à ChatGPT, mais qu'avec tous les problèmes de censure en Chine, ça pose des problèmes un peu différents, c'est ça? Elle demande comment se passe la question de la censure.
Oui, oui. Alors, donc, la question de la Chine est en réalité très complexe parce que d'une part, effectivement, il y a des contraintes évidentes que le gouvernement fait peser sur les entreprises qui pourraient développer ça. Et donc, des entreprises comme Baidu et Alibaba qui sont depuis plusieurs années en train de développer leur propre et qui développent aussi leur propre modèle, solution d'intelligence artificielle générative, ont fait des progrès énormes, mais n'ont pas lancé encore, à ma connaissance, sur le marché des produits comparables à ChatGPT. Les progrès énormes sont dus au fait que, certes, le gouvernement est, disons, un peu plus présent, on va dire comme ça, mais que les scientifiques qui s'adonnent et les entreprises qui s'adonnent à la création de ces outils sont beaucoup plus possibilistes et sont beaucoup moins contraints par des questions éthiques ou des questions qui ont affaire à effectivement les conséquences même les plus extrêmes. Donc c'est un double problème, un problème de censure, mais de l'autre effectivement un manque de limites dans certains cas. Et ça c'est avéré, c'est-à-dire qu'il y a plusieurs sources de littérature, de ce qui est produit par des chercheurs en intelligence artificielle générative en Chine, qui attestent du fait que tout en cherchant à ne pas se faire reprendre par le gouvernement chinois, pour le reste, il semble beaucoup moins préoccupé par exemple par les questions de modération des propos. Et là, effectivement, on se heurte à un autre problème. Personnellement, je pense que le problème de ChatGPT, et d'autres l'ont indiqué mieux et avant moi, est un problème aussi de possibilité qu'elle ouvre pour la désinformation. Dans la mesure où vous pouvez générer automatiquement et publier automatiquement un nombre incroyable de messages, tous plus ou moins représentatifs ou plus ou moins, disons, bien ficelés, vous pouvez vous imaginer qu'est-ce que ça signifie en termes de vagues de désinformation en correspondance des campagnes électorales. Je mets un bémol à tout ça parce que quand même une autre panique morale à laquelle on a assisté dans le contexte politique était celle des deepfakes. Les deepfakes sont donc des fausses vidéos dans lesquelles des personnages de synthèse qui incarneraient le président ou le premier ministre de tel ou tel pays tiennent des propos qui peuvent être considérés comme de la désinformation. C'était quelque chose qu'on imaginait se déchaîner à partir de 2014. En réalité, il n'y a pas eu de ça. Il n'y a pas eu de ça aussi parce que effectivement les autorités et dans le contexte de la régulation électorale sont attentives à ça et en croyant aussi, espérant que cela ne se produise pas non plus avec ChatGPT ou avec DAL-I qui est tout aussi impressionnant comme résultat.
Merci beaucoup. On a déjà pris un petit peu de retard, hein, donc je vais peut-être céder la parole à Élie, mais je vois s'il y a encore une question à longue, on pourra peut-être en parler un petit peu plus tard.
Oui, ok.
Et encore merci beaucoup, Antonio, et à très bientôt, j'espère.
Merci à vous.